Lovely. I've got goosebumps. Thank you so much for having me, Grand River Council on Aging. I'm delighted to be here. I always like to, I get so excited when I talk about these things. And bone health is one of those things that it's not very sexy, is it? Bone health. No, not very sexy at all. In any event, what I'm going to do, I'm not a huge fan of PowerPoint, just to start you off. So I trade back and forth. I'll give you a little PowerPoint slide and then I'll come back and talk to you in this format. Sound like a plan? Okay, and I worked really hard on these, so you have to put up with me while I brag about my abilities in the PowerPoint world. See, there I am. Look at that. I even found a skeleton just for you. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm an older adult fitness consultant in and around the county of Brant and Brantford, and used to be in Cambridge back in the days when we could be together. Unfortunately, some of those classes are no longer existent, but that's okay. I still get to see the important people like Darlene. I have been teaching older adult fitness for a long time, just about 25 years. My credentials are out of the province of British Columbia because those provincial certifications are not necessarily available here in Ontario. It's a provincial organization that has the provincial backing, so I prefer to be with that versus a private corporation. With British Columbia Recreation Parks Association, I am a certified older adult fitness instructor, as well as what's called an OsteoFit instructor. And an OsteoFit instructor, OsteoFit is a medically endorsed program. BC Women's Hospital in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia is behind the program, and we are trained to be able to deliver fitness classes for people with osteoporosis, including people that are at risk of fracture. One of the reasons I'm particularly proud of that designation is because we have to have a practicum every 3 years. I just had mine in the fall. So my instructor, we all learned a lot that day because usually I do it via video, which is a little bit different than doing it via Zoom because she's in British Columbia. So she needed to see what I was doing with my participants. She needed to see what they were doing, and she needed to see what I was doing. And that's the only certification I'm aware of that requires an ongoing evaluation from an instructor to make sure that we're on point. So I'm very proud of it. I teach fitness classes in Paris, also in St. George virtually now, and also for a very new nonprofit called New Vistas for Seniors. We are a completely online community of programs, and that's coming along quite well. I also have the great pleasure of being part of McMaster University's launch of 55 plus continuing education. If you haven't heard of it, they offer some fabulous courses. It is fee for service. And I presented for them on sleep and the older adult, as well as the importance of balance, which ties into bone health. And I love it. I love the opportunity to be able to meet with the different people and talk about my curiosity, which is essentially what it is. I get to research my curiosity and present it to the community. I also do a little bit of writing. And Darlene's right, I did go back to university to do a one-year MA in 2016. And the reason I went back was because I needed to answer some questions. At the time, I was facilitating a falls prevention program in the community through St. Elizabeth Rehab. And it was a falls prevention program that was funded by the Ontario government. And I didn't understand why I wasn't getting more people coming to the program. So I went specifically to study older adults and falls and older adults and falls prevention. And what I learned was very interesting. Older adults really don't do anything to stop themselves from falling. So it was an interesting master's research project, and I enjoyed every moment of it. That's a little bit about me. I love the community. I love being able to work with people. It always makes me excited. And again, I'm delighted to be here. We're together for approximately 25 minutes. In that time, I will be covering a few things. I will be covering what is osteoporosis and what is low bone mass, also what is often referred to as osteopenia. I will also be discussing why exercise may improve bone density, how diet may improve bone density, and also a few tips on how we can make our environment a little more bone friendly. I'm going to skip out of this so I can see you. Yeah, it's much friendlier when I can see you. All right, you're welcome to use the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And I always like to begin these conversations with 3 things. What is osteoarthritis compared to osteopenia, compared to osteoporosis? And I find the greatest part of the confusion comes with the osteoarthritis. For some reason, osteo means bone in Latin. And for some reason, the medical profession decided that they needed to put that word with arthritis, which became somewhat confusing. That's my experience. Osteoarthritis is what I tell people. I think of my grandmother. My grandmother had arthritis. That's osteoarthritis. So it's just a new tag that's put on the beginning of osteoarthritis. Okay. Not to minimize arthritis, because I know it can be very painful, it can be very debilitating, and it can be very difficult to live with. Osteopenia, they're encouraging us to call it low bone mass, and that's to put up a little bit of a bigger red flag than osteopenia. That's the logic. Osteopenia is a red flag that our bone density is starting to be a little bit of a problem. Let me give you the written word for this. I promise I'll get to the vitamin D. I know that you're very excited to know about that. Okay, there we go. So low bone density, sometimes called osteopenia, refers to bone density that is lower than the normal peak density, but not low enough to be classified as osteoporosis. Osteoporosis is a condition that causes bones to become thin and porous, decreasing bone strength, and leading to increased risk of breaking a bone. Make sense? I hope so. So first, one of the things that I think is very important when we're talking about bone health is our posture. And posture is one of those things that's very easy, especially once we retire and we spend a little more time sitting, unless of course you went directly from an office job where you were sitting a lot to retirement, where maybe you're not sitting a lot, but perhaps you are a little more than usual. First things first, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to focus on your posture for just a moment. So I'm going to ask you to put your feet flat on the floor. I'm going to ask you to move away from the back of the chair just a little bit, because if you need the chair, that's great. But I really want you to notice the challenges behind keeping good posture for this 25 minutes, okay? So you're a little bit away from the back of the chair, feet are firmly planted on the floor. Now what I want you to do is pull in your belly button. Now I want you to lift up your chest. And then I want you to roll your shoulders back twice, so they're back where they're meant to be instead of where they are, which is like this because we're reading and sitting and well, there's a pandemic. And ears over the shoulders, okay? So I'm going to check in with you every once in a while over the course of the 25 minutes and see how your posture is. Excellent. So it's important to think about that spine. That's part of what's happening right now is I'm protecting the spine because I'm not slouching, which means I'm not putting an extra pressure on the top of my spine when I'm crouching forward. And we often, when we're talking about osteoporosis or bone health, we think about our wrists, right? If I fall and I break a wrist, or my hips, if I fall, am I going to break a hip? But the spine, right? We've got those nice little vertebrae that stack up on top of each other. And those guys, we want to keep that back nice and straight. There's two nice big muscles that run down either side of that spine. Their job is to keep us erect, okay? And as they're stronger, it protects the spine because we want to keep those vertebrae right on top of each other. When they start, if this is the side, if they start coming forward like this because I'm bending forward, because I'm slouching, then I start running the risk of degrading the front part of those bones. And the other thing is that if I do have osteoporosis and I'm at risk of fracture, I can, heaven forbid, we can run into something called a compression fracture. And what that is the vertebrae actually disintegrates between two vertebrae, or three or four. So exercise as a way to improve bone mass. Question: if I go for a walk every day, will that improve my bone health, my bone density? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Guess what? It will help me maintain my bone health, but it will not increase my bone health. Okay? The only time it's going to increase my bone health is if I'm a sedentary individual, which is fine. Okay? I'm a sedentary individual. I'm not up and walking. I'm not up and moving. I'm not exercising. And I start walking, it will improve my bone health for a finite period of time, and then all of a sudden it will stop. It will no longer be able to improve that bone density, and I'll give you some explanation as to why that happens. Now I'm changing my notes. For my bone mass to increase, to become healthier, one of the things that I need to do is I need to challenge my muscles, which challenges my bones. So this is where my ad hoc setup can be a little challenging. All right, so I'm just going to change the angle of my camera to give you a demonstration. So everybody think about Popeye. If you want me to sing, I will. And Popeye's muscles. Remember on Popeye the Sailor Man, right? And he'd go like this, so he'd have a big muscle. Okay, so those are called our biceps, and the biceps are responsible for me picking up my groceries, picking up the laundry basket, picking up a load. So that muscle right here, it attaches down here on the forearm, and it also attaches up here on the shoulder, and that's how it's able to move that arm up. Okay, a little bit of physics. So what happens is I'm teaching my exercise classes and I'm using 5-pound weights. I'm using 5-pound weights. I'm using 5-pound weights. All of a sudden, my bones need a challenge. So I pick up 8-pound weights. So I pick up 8-pound weights and I start to do my bicep curls again. What's happening is the 8 pounds, where that muscle attaches here and where it attaches here, it's yelling at the bone. Okay, the muscles are yelling at the bone, hey, Trisha's carrying extra weight now. We need to be stronger to be able to support the extra weight that she's carrying. Clear? Am I clear? Okay, think about it. If you're going to write it down a question if you want it, and I'll try and answer it for you later. So that's where a challenge comes in with what we call weight-bearing exercise. Okay. In this instance, it's free weights. It would be a dumbbell, right? The other exercise that we can use is called body weight, all right? And body weight, an example of that would be a squat. And a squat is where a squat is getting up from a chair or sitting down into a chair. When we're doing a fitness class, what we do is we don't sit in the chair. So we go down and then we come back up. So you want to improve those, and that's going to improve the muscles in my legs are going to be challenged. So they're going to start pulling on those bones in my legs where they're attached on either end, because that's how the levers work, right? And they're going to start yelling, Trisha's doing that thing again. She's making us work. And they're going to tug on the bone, tell the bone, she needs more stability there, and they're going to ask for bone. They're going to ask for what they need to be able to build bone. That's how the bones get stronger. That's how they build integrity. The third way that I can build bone strength are with bands. And a band is exactly that. It's a band with give in it. It's almost like an elastic, but then I do exercises with it. When I do an exercise with a band, again, what's happening is I'm tugging on, the muscle is tugging on the bone. It's got resistance, right? I have to work against that elastic band. So it's telling the bone, Trisha's doing that thing again. We need to be stronger to make sure that that band can continue to do its work. Okay, so that's how exercise impacts on us. Now, I hope that maybe what you've garnered out of this is that I need to have strong leg muscles to be able to support my back. They all tie in together. So one of the things that you can do to help your bone mass, here's my example for you. How many people does this happen to? You get up, you finish your dinner, and you have to get up to do the dishes. And this is what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to change my camera again. Here's my tabletop. Dinner's done. I slide my chair back, plant my hands on, and get up. Sound familiar? Think about it. Think about me tonight when you have dinner, all right? One of the things you can do is start working on not pressing those hands onto the table, because as soon as I press my hands on the table, my legs don't have to work as hard. My shoulders are working harder, but my shoulders really shouldn't be pushing my body weight. That's not what they were built for, or I'd be walking on my hands. Right? Okay, think about standing up, not using your hands, right? And it may take a while. And think about sitting down without using your hands. That will strengthen, because you're all of a sudden you're challenging those bones that are used to the assistance of the tabletop. Okay. All right. What other exercises are important for my bone health? Balance. Two kinds of balance. One, still balance. We're not moving balance, right? Remember when we were kids, we'd stand with our toe to heel, right? See how long you can keep your balance for? That's training while we're in a position where we're not moving. The other thing is we need to train our balance when we're moving. And what does that look like? Well, all kinds of good things. We do, what do we do in class? One of the things that I do is we do slow motion back stepping lunges, okay? We could also work on moving in different ways to keep that balance going, with our feet wide and then with our feet very close together, and then alternating them, walking on our heels or walking on our toes. Okay? Balance is very important, very important. Okay. We also want to think about exercising our reaction time. So we think about reaction as something that we don't even really think about it anymore. The reaction is important for things like, oh, I'm standing at my kitchen counter and I'm chopping carrots and I have to turn to get the phone and the cat's in the way and I have to respond to that. So I want to be training my reaction time so that I don't forget about those things, because they're easy to forget about. True? We also want to train our brains. We want to do some cognitive training because you've done brain teasers here, which is awesome. So I'll give you one of my favorites. Simple. So this hand, I'm going to do the symbol for the OK. You can do it with me. OK. And the other one is the symbol for Victory Day or peace. Okay. Now what I want you to do is switch them at the same time. Ha. And then go back. Be careful, I end up giving people the fuddy-duddy symbol every once in a while by accident. Okay. And just keep trying, it's training your brain, it's getting things crosswise, it's doing things a little bit differently. Oh, how's your posture? Oh, see, it's like watching Groundhog Day. All of a sudden I see these heads get a little bit higher. Good, excellent. The other thing that we want to be looking for are spine sparing activities and spine sparing exercises if you're in an exercise class or if you're doing your own exercise. What do I mean by spine sparing? I mean that we want to be doing things in a way that ergonomically are not going to impact my spine in a negative way. So for example, when I bend down to get the laundry basket, am I using my legs? Am I, just like when you're at work and you had to do safe work environments and they said, don't lift a load with your back. Same thing now, even more important. getting down with those knees to pick something up. And if it's too heavy to pick it up, then that's information that you need to decrease whatever it is you're picking up, okay? And if those legs aren't strong enough to get you down there, then we're back to the hands on the table, right? Okay, get the hands away from the table, that'll help to strengthen those legs. We also want to watch twisting. Now, circling the hips is different than twisting. I don't even like to do it, but twisting this way, right? We specifically want to be careful about that when I think of the garden. You know, I'm here and I'm doing something and then I just twist to pick something up and move it in front of me, or vice versa. We want to be able to watch that, because again, that spine is really it's not optimal to be asking that spine to move sideways. If there's any bone density issues, then that's what we would consider a high risk activity. Okay. We want to be able to also be able to support the spine, the back, when I bend down to pick something up. So what does that mean? How do I support my spine when I bend down to pick something up? Sorry, I moved my studio and my studio, and it used to be here in my dining room, and now it's not. So I had to come back to my dining room to do this. So I'm not quite. All right. So how do I support my spine? So I'm going to lean down. I'm going to lean down to pick something up. So what I'm going to do is put a hand on my thigh before I bend those knees. Okay. That's another time you could use a chair, seat of a chair. Please don't use the back of the chair. The back of the chair is not a good support because it's unstable, because it's only part of the chair. Right? So using those knees. All right. So let's go back to my famous slide presentations. So if you are looking for, there, I swear. Okay, so if you're looking for a good exercise program, you want to make sure that there's strength and endurance with body weight, free weight, and resistance. You want to ensure that there's balance training, both whilst you are moving and whilst you are still. You're looking for reaction training, you're looking for cognitive training, and you're looking for posture. And when I say posture, I mean all of it. Are you being given the cues that you're doing something safely to make sure that your back is going to remain safe and healthy? Okay. All right. Nutrition. So nutrition, Osteoporosis Canada, which is my gold standard, that's what I'm trained to use. Osteoporosis Canada suggests we consume calcium from natural sources. Natural source being things like cheese and dairy. Right? I want you to be clear that at no point am I suggesting, if your doctor has you on calcium, that you leave the calcium supplements. That's between you and your doctor, right? So how do I get what I need? Calcium can be a little bit difficult to get naturally. We all think if we're eating almonds and broccoli, we're good to go. Maybe not, right? What you want, what they say is, if we need 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day, so if you're drinking a glass of, I'm just going to say milk, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, if you're drinking a cup at each meal, that's 900 milligrams. So the other 300 will come from your tea, your muffins that you made, your cheese, your cheesecake, your handful of almonds. That'll make up the rest of what it is that you need. I believe you were sent a link for the calcium calculator, which is an excellent tool. If you go on it, it's a little onerous online, but Osteoporosis Canada, which is the other link that you should have received, they have one as well. The calcium calculator will show you, if I eat 2 cups of broccoli, this is how much calcium I have consumed. If I eat a handful, if I eat a quarter of a cup of almonds, this is how much calcium I have. Okay. So 1,200 milligrams of calcium a day. I'm cognizant of the time here. Vitamin D. So vitamin D is an interesting one. If you grew up at a certain time on the planet, then your mother probably gave you cod liver oil, right? And cod liver oil is very high in vitamin D. See, I told you I'd come back to these. 1 teaspoon has 426 micrograms, right? What we need is 800 to 2,000 international units daily. Here's some example of how you can get vitamin D naturally. Remembering that if you're eating salmon out of a can, you need to eat the bones. If you pick them out, you're not getting your vitamin D, right? We do get some from our milk and from our yogurt and egg yolks, not huge amounts. Okay. Remembering if you're going to take a supplement for vitamin D, that it does need to be vitamin D3. Okay. Make sure that you have that, that it specifically says that on the label of the vitamin D. Simple changes to your environment. We're winding up for time. Watch the pet bowls. Watch the pet toys. Watch the pets. Scatter rugs. And what happens is that we can catch our toes on the front of them, and that can create some instability when we go down. Maybe I have a chair in my bedroom so that I can sit down to put on my pants. And watch your footwear. Watch it in between seasons. So when I transition into my sandals, remember, all of a sudden underneath my feet, that's going to feel differently, and that's going to affect my stability. That's something called proprioception, and that starts to diminish. That's why when I step on the ice, I go for a skate now, and it used to be the case that I could just walk across it. Proprioception is our body wants to know where we are in space. That information comes up through the feet. Think about this. Think about a pinata, bashing a pinata with the blindfold on. And I would not do that now, or I would have to be in a very controlled environment to do that. That's because as I'm aging, my proprioception is going down. That's an example of proprioception. I know where I am in space, even with the blindfold on, because my feet are giving me good information, right? And one of my favorites, and I learned this from a woman in a falls prevention program many years ago, keep a salt shaker in the door of your car so that in the winter, when you open the door and there's a patch of ice right there, you can put salt on it so it melts and you can get out of the car safely. Those are just a few things you can do for your environment. There's many more things. We could pull those apart for long periods of time. That's a very quick overview of bone health. I thank you all for taking the time to hang out with me while I talked about that. And I look forward to any questions if you want to stay. Thank you.